But are we sure that Fernando Mendoza will be the Raiders' franchise quarterback? Coach?
Thinking about this, it just depends on how we're defining franchise quarterback. Are we looking at it sort of as that first tier where it's the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar, like that level of franchise quarterback, or then there's the next level?
10-year starter. Trevor Lawrence level.
Well, yeah, and
Whoa,
Trevor's an
that
MVP.
sounded
No,
almost,
but
nobody got a contract and they're happy.
but that's exactly what I'm
Yeah,
talking
that's
about.
a
It's
good-
that other level of quarterback.
Hard to
You know, there is Dak Prescott,
Yes.
Prescott.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. Would you be happy with Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, thrilled.
I don't know. I don't know if
Thrilled this year.
you'd be
Not about
thrilled
thrilled,
with it. You know, you get into that second contract with a guy, you think that he's going to give you a chance to lead you to a championship, and you know, we're going to have to see with Trevor Lawrence. But that's where I see him landing more so than that top tier of guy. And he, as a player comparison, he kind of reminds me of Chad Pennington. So I had Chad in New York, and Chad, the year that he was drafted, he was the first quarterback drafted in that class. Now, Brady was drafted a little bit later in that class, but Chad was drafted as the first guy. He was 13-0 in college, a little bit different conference. I get all that, but really good processor, really accurate passer, catchable ball, excellent leader, smart, all those things that you see in Mendoza. And he did give you a chance to compete for it. He just wasn't necessarily in that next tier of guys. So I think that he could be there for a long time. He could make them very competitive, but I don't necessarily see him being in that elite category.
Pennington's an interesting comp that I think makes sense. He's bigger though than Pennington, right?
He's 2 inches bigger than Chad is.
Because I'd be hesitant to say this about any quarterback coming out of college because we've just seen so many ballyhooed Heisman winners, top picks,
generational talent.
Right. Not paying. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has come along,
undefeated in high
but he's not
school.
what we thought. At least to this point,
Playoff game pretty early, a big contract.
he's not what we
Top
thought he'd
5
be.
MVP this year. Yeah,
All right, but then Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. You know, so it's just so hard to predict. I do, though, think they're setting him up. I think, like you said, you named all his qualities. I think he does have qualities that you like. And then I like the fact that he's going to go in there and be behind Kirk Cousins for at least half the season, if not most of the season or all of it. I like that. So I think they're putting him in a good position to be a franchise quarterback. And if he's got the goods, I think they're setting him up well.
You know I like him. That's what I wanted you to. I think that winning is underrated in college. I like that Joe Burrow won at LSU. I like that he won with Indiana. J.J. McCarthy won, and I didn't see him throw the ball. So that went frustrating. And you know what I like?
But he didn't win.
You're talking about
Johnny
a national.
Manziel
You got to
did.
win a national championship.
No, I look, if the
Ohio State
measurables
quarterbacks
work, great. And if the pro day is, you know, all the pro days are the same. But if the measurables are good, that's one great thing. If the characters are great, like he's leadership and all of that is good. And then if he actually wins, I like that.
Listen, the winning at Indiana does matter to me. And winning the way he won.
In a big game.
Right, and
He's
playing
a
big
gamer.
in big games. I actually think, you know, Fernando Mendoza won some big games. I know that's like controversial opinion. But I like his disposition. I think that, and you guys know I don't like small quarterbacks, and I like big quarterbacks. And he's a big kid, and unlike where the other difference in Chad is, even at Marshall in college, Chad wasn't putting his body on the line quite as much. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, but he wasn't. To me, Mendoza, I don't know if he'll do it in the pros, but has a toughness of his running style that just shows a level of athleticism that is somewhat unique for the position, not all that unique.
But you'd agree his level of athleticism and like the other guys that we talk about where he can really make a lot of plays with his feet. He can do enough to kind of escape, but he's really going to have to step up into the pocket and move around the pocket.
No, I don't think he will have like plus athleticism for athletic NFL quarterbacks. I agree with that. I also, though, So because other winners in college are Bryce Young and Mac Jones, who were first-round picks, and
I like both those guys.
I know you do, but I think
measurables aren't there for Bryce.
Measurables aren't there for Bryce. I don't know if they're quite, and I feel like the intangibles weren't quite there for Mac the way they are for this.
A little bit silly.
I don't know how beloved he's been, but again, I'm not trying to pick on your guy. I look at the quarterbacks. I think we make a mistake when we're projecting the quarterbacks and look at them just within the class rather than in buckets of classes, like prospects over the last 5 years of quarterback drafts. And that's where my hesitation on Mendoza comes, in that and it's honestly, one of my concerns about Cam Ward were these guys the best quarterback that came out this year?
Fair concern.
But if we take the last 10 first-round quarterbacks, would they have been 7th and 9th?
Okay, let's be real for a second. Sports talk conversations are absolutely fascinating when you stop and think about them. Because we all collectively agree to just keep talking, right? We all agree to consume these shows. We all agree to have the same discussions over and over and over again. We make predictions. We draw conclusions from the past based on limited information. We watch a show like this, we listen to Nick Wright share his perspective. Mangini, say what you will about him, but the guy has been coaching in the NFL for a long time. He knows football. We've got Wilds, we've got Brew, we've got Colin. We've got Stephen A. Smith, Pat McAfee, a punter, of all things. And then you have a random person like me. It's so interesting, especially now that Nick is talking about looking at quarterbacks in terms of buckets, right? Over the last 5 years or so, what would you do with a Mendoza when you put it all together? And here's what happens when you have that much time to just talk about one single quarterback. I understand what Mangini was getting at in terms of how we define a franchise quarterback. Because not too long ago, when you said I'm a franchise player, especially in basketball and such, it meant you were elite. You were special. You are the franchise. You are him. You're on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Now, we just have franchise quarterbacks that are like, are you just in the NFL for 10 years without everyone questioning every single year whether you should be the starter, whether you should be benched, whether they should trade you? You know, it's just like, okay. I've said this so many times over the years, but it's worth repeating specifically for the Raiders because I haven't been able to share this take with that franchise and its fan base yet. Here it is, it matters less how truly elite your quarterback is and more how elite your organization is run. Because we can talk about Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, right? They're better than Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, Jimmy Garoppolo. And yet those other quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts especially, have been to multiple Super Bowls and won one. Brock Purdy went to 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl. Sam Darnold won a Super Bowl. I forget what other random quarterback I used. I think that was all of them. And yet Joe Burrow can't get back. Lamar Jackson has never been to a Super Bowl. Josh Allen has never been to a Super Bowl. But we do know that when you are truly at that next level as a quarterback, and your team is well run with good coaching and defense and so on, then you get what Tom Brady had with the Patriots, what Patrick Mahomes has with the Kansas City Chiefs. And there is that truly next level of historical greatness. But at the end of the day, I forget, who was the quarterback that won with the Bucs when they smoked the Eagles? I think that was the 3rd time the Eagles lost in the NFC Championship game. I forget who they even beat, honestly, at this point. But I'm pretty sure whoever that was, the Bucs won a Super Bowl before Peyton Manning and all that. I mean, Eli Manning definitely elevated and played great in Super Bowls especially, but nobody was calling him this elite guy. Nobody was like, oh my gosh, we have to face Eli Manning this weekend. Oh no. Right? And so it's really fascinating that if you're a quarterback in the NFL and you play for like 10 years with a team and you win a Super Bowl, it's technically a victory. It's technically like, yeah, we won a Super Bowl. Because the vast majority of quarterbacks, even the Hall of Famers, the truly special ones, sometimes never win a Super Bowl. But for the ones that do, they win 1 or 2. It's incredibly rare company to win 3 or 4, right? It's incredibly rare. So just winning one is like, okay, we got that Super Bowl. That's great. And obviously you want more, right? But at the end of the day, just getting that one, and yet we consistently see these other franchises, these other quarterbacks, win and be competitive and be right there in the hunt. And even the truly elite quarterbacks like Stafford, Mahomes, Allen, all the names, we still see how incredibly hard it is. Patrick Mahomes is an elite quarterback. His roster wasn't as great as it was in years past, and what happened? He didn't even make the playoffs. He literally didn't even make the playoffs. And that's with Patrick Mahomes. Tom B. Brady, didn't he go on like a 10-year drought? I mean, he played for so long, who can keep track, but I'm pretty sure it was like a 10-year drought. So it's just, the whole idea of how elite someone is. And that's why I said, as long as Mendoza is just Kirk Cousins, this is actually kind of funny that this is the conversation they're having, because I aired out this take probably a few weeks ago at this point. I said that if Mendoza is just Kirk Cousins, given the infrastructure of this team, the coaching staff, how will I believe this team is now run? It's a home run. It's great. You're a contender year after year after year. Now, will you be able to break through? Will you be able to win a Super Bowl, maybe two? Right? There are so many other factors at play. How healthy are you? Does the ball bounce your way? Do you hit that 58-yard field goal? Does the other team miss that 45-yard field goal? How good is Mahomes at this point? Josh Allen? Lamar? Do the Broncos actually elevate and become a great team? Do the Chargers crash and burn? There are just other factors. A lot of the time, and people don't talk about this enough, it's also about what else is going on around the league right now. Are there any other great quarterbacks who have terrible coaches or whose teams keep getting injured because the defense or the O-line isn't good? Do they have an elite receiver who went down with a hamstring strain or whatever? There are a million other factors that ultimately get why. Oh, you from either 1 Super Bowl to 3 Super Bowls, right? There's a ton of factors at play. A ton. But that's why it's about what you can do to consistently put yourself in a position to compete, to be able to win. That ultimately starts with how well run your franchise is. Now, don't get me wrong, you can be a great quarterback and elevate that and still put your team in a position to win. But it's going to be hard to win. It's going to be hard. You have a better chance of winning a Super Bowl with a team that is well run and a Kirk Cousins level quarterback than having a team that is poorly run, poorly coached, but with an elite Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar. I think that's just so obvious at this point. I think we've seen too many examples of all the different variations of that statement. So to me, it becomes the wrong question. And then when we want to take Nick's approach, which I'm not even saying is a bad approach, I'm just saying we've got to look at all the quarterbacks over these years and figure out where Mendoza would be. Would he be like 8th or 9th? And it's kind of like, it doesn't even matter at that point. Let's say yes, if Mendoza and Caleb Williams were in the same draft, everybody would pick Caleb over Mendoza. Let's say that's true, and it probably is true. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The most recent quarterbacks that I think truly proved that were actually Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, and Brock Purdy. 2 of them obviously won Super Bowls. 1 of them went to multiple Super Bowls. And yet if we had a draft right now, if we look at the bucket of quarterbacks right now, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, everybody is picking those quarterbacks over those other quarterbacks. And yet again, Jalen Hurts went to 2 Super Bowls. And I know I have a higher opinion of Jalen Hurts than maybe other people, but I'm confident more people are picking Justin Herbert. I'm sure right now more people are picking Sam Darnold, etc. So it's all about, is your floor good enough? If you truly reach that next level of eliteness, then it's really just about how good is your team? How well run are you? Do you get a little bit of luck within the division, etc.? Yeah, then you can win like 3 or 4 Super Bowls. But just even look at Patrick Mahomes right now. They obviously went on an absolutely unbelievable run, and I don't necessarily think it's over. I'm not burying the Chiefs by any stretch of the imagination. But obviously the Raiders fans fully know what the Chiefs have been up to. They won 3 Super Bowls. And think about who they were taking advantage of. Nick does not believe Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. Nick does not believe Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. And he does not believe Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback. And yet those are the 3 quarterbacks that Patrick Mahomes had to go up against in those Super Bowls. Sure, he had to maybe beat a Lamar or a Josh or a Joe Burrow somewhere throughout the playoffs, but it's just that the Bengals were a disaster of a run organization. they're a disaster. The Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens team consistently comes up short. Consistently comes up short. And we already know all the historic battles between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And so imagine if the Ravens were as well run as the Eagles, or the Bills were as well run as the Rams. Is Patrick Mahomes able to just run through the AFC year after year? Of course not. We saw what Patrick Mahomes did against the Philadelphia Eagles. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. So you need so many other factors at play, even when we're talking about the modern NFL. We're not even going back to Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. The most recent version of the NFL, the most recent best version with the highest accomplishment, the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, and yet it's still really difficult to win. You're still taking advantage of inferior talent, lesser quarterback play, etc. It is a major luxury and a major gift. I don't care who you have to beat in the AFC to get to the Super Bowl. If you're going up against Jimmy Garoppolo, that's a real luxury to have. It's a lot different if you had to go up against Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Heck, we saw what he did against Tom Brady, didn't win. So this stuff is hard even for the franchise quarterbacks, as Mangini would describe them. And then trying to bring down Mendoza or add context by saying, well, let's look at the quarterbacks of the last 5 years. Where would we draft Mendoza? I think that just gets us farther away from the appropriate conversation to have, personally. I think that conversation, on one side it's thought-provoking, it's interesting, and that's why I opened up by saying we all agree to have these conversations in sports talk. We're just like, yeah, let's look at it through all the different lenses. Let's go on rants and random deep dives and just keep talking sports for the sake of talking. And I love that. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for it. But I still think sometimes it can do us a disservice because it's a little easier for us to simply have the wrong conversation. I don't need to figure out where Mendoza would rank if we're drafting Trevor Lawrence, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, right? If we're looking at the bucket of quarterbacks from the last 4 or 5 years or whatever. It's irrelevant to me. It simply does not matter. And we saw what happens with all those quarterbacks over the last 5 years. We saw what happens depending on where they got drafted, the levels of success they've had. We see that all the varying degrees of success are so dependent on how good your team is. How good is your coach? Does your general manager know how to support you when he recognizes, okay, this team wasn't good enough your rookie year. I'm now going to make a change. I'm going to fire this coach. I'm going to hire this coordinator. I'm going to draft this left tackle, whatever it may be. We know those things matter. We know those things matter. So those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Las Vegas Raiders and Mendoza? Do you think it's clear that he will be a franchise quarterback? Do you think we're having the right discussion around Mendoza? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.